Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast, and welcome back to Autistic Assemble, where it's a really cool series where we speak to people who are autistic, and we can all share our journeys with each other. So it's going to be really cool. In another episode today, I'm joined with Jennifer, and we're going to speak about autism and sharing our journeys with one another. So Jennifer, thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, because I know this is your first podcast, so I think it's going to be really fun. I guess something new to try that you haven't done
Yeah.
before. So I guess would you mind introducing yourself, Jennifer?
Yeah, I'm Jennifer. I live in the UK. Yeah, or not UK. I live in the US. I used to live in the UK. I got my master's in the UK in 2016 to 2017. I went to UCL. I didn't think I would get in, but when I got accepted, I decided to go over there. And interestingly enough, I think the major I chose to pursue really shows how autistic I was like then with even being undiagnosed. And anyway, I live in the US now. I'm back in the States.
Yeah, it was it must have been a bit different, I guess, because I wouldn't know because I've never been to the US. Like, what would you say is the difference in your opinion to
Ooh.
like?
Yeah, no, it was very different. In interacting with people, the differences could be subtle, but they were still definitely there. I've always struggled a little bit socially, so when I was put in a different contexts where different people anticipate it. Like one time, all my classmates and I were sitting down for lunch, and wanted to cut my apple in half so it was just easier to eat. And I asked if anyone had a pocket knife because in the US, so many people carry them, and they looked at me like I had asked for a bomb. Just like the difference in subtle things like that.
Yeah.
Uh, um, Wow, I really appreciated that the underground was quiet. Like people really coveted a quiet, private commute with how crowded the carriages can be. I invited some American friends to visit me, and they just talked loudly the entire time, and I was very embarrassed. Small things. I miss being able to get curry as well, in such large quantities for like 5 pounds.
Yeah, they are nice. Curry. Um, yeah, like I like it's funny because whenever I speak to people from America, and I talk about food, for example, because so in some contexts it's different how you say things over in America to UK. So if I'm talking about
Mhm.
jelly, which I like jelly, and the person from America said to me, what jelly? What do you mean? And then I was like, and then I'm getting confused as well while we're talking about it. So
Right.
it's funny how certain things are from America to US.
Absolutely. I'll still have American friends over to my apartment for tea, and I'll serve biscuits with it. And I keep calling them biscuits because it makes most sense when you're serving a cookie with tea to call it a biscuit. But um, yeah, the differences in the names and things.
Yeah,
But yeah, when I lived in the UK, I did not know that I was autistic. It definitely made the culture shock a different thing to navigate learning those different things.
yeah. So it was after your time in the UK when you like how soon after how after soon or long after was your diagnosis after you came?
It was 4 years. It was actually just last year that I got officially diagnosed. Around December, January of last year, I was uh, around this time. I was questioning, like, maybe there's something else going on. And I had just signed up for an evaluation that was in February of last year, got the official diagnosis in April 1st, which felt really ironic. But um, yeah, I have not made it a full calendar year with a formal diagnosis. How long have you known that you were autistic?
Um, well, I am 21 now, and I was diagnosed when I was 9, so it would have been in 2009. Um,
Yeah,
and exactly I was 9. 2009, right? Um,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, a while ago, I was young, But yeah, not as soon as like you've not long been diagnosed. So um it, it like I know now, like if people get undiagnosed maybe when they're an adult, they tend to remember more than probably me. And they have their like, I don't know if they have these. I know some people in the community have like their autistic anniversaries, they call them sometimes.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I don't remember what month I was born. No, not I said that wrong, haven't I? Month I was diagnosed, not born. I've got to know when I was born, haven't I?
Yeah.
Uh,
No,
but
but yeah, the autism birthday, being able to celebrate the exact day that you
mm,
knew, that
yeah,
makes sense. If you were 9, I wouldn't have known at 9 what that anniversary would be.
no, but it was quite funny. I had a conversation last year, and it was with a person that ha had their anniversary for getting diagnosed like the next day afterwards or something, and then
Wow, yeah.
and then on that same day you had a person that was going to get diagnosed on that day, which they did. So that was actually pretty ironic. That I had two people that
Yeah.
was one was getting diagnosed on the day that someone got diagnosed. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that's
Mm,
pretty serendipitous that all that like lined up just
yeah,
so.
yeah. But like, how was you after your like how was you feeling like when you got diagnosed? Um,
Ooh, I'm I'm gonna be honest, I'm a little ashamed of how I felt because when I first found out, I was really sad. A few weeks before my evaluation, I was talking to a friend about how I didn't want to be labeled as autistic. And there was a lot of internalized ableism that I had to unpack. I got diagnosed at 29, and every time I had heard the word autism growing up, it was always used as like when someone walked away from the table and there was a social faux pas or something they had missed in the conversation, someone around me would be like, "Oh, they're autistic," as a way of like trying to explain their behavior away. And it always felt really rude when people were using it. So I was really hesitant to have an association with something that had always been brought up in a negative context for me in the 29 years that I'd interacted with the term.
mm,
So I was really wrestling with the idea of getting an assessment at all. So finding out that I really had to unpack what that meant. I believed about people and myself included in that. So it was kind of an emotional roller coaster. At first, I was kind of bummed out to have the label, but then it started to make everything make a lot more sense. Like, oh, I wasn't too talkative or too emotional or too invested and interested in things. I was just autistic and passionate and had a lot to talk about the things that really interested me, and that wasn't a fault. And if anyone was at any point irritated with me or needed more patience or something, it's on them to communicate that to me directly instead of assuming that I'm going to be able to read between the lines because I can't. And the last year has been a lot of unpacking that and learning how to advocate for my needs better within a smaller group of people that have really warmed up to it, and it's been so nice. Like one friend who didn't really understand the idea of how some of those things could be ableist, holding some of those beliefs. A few weeks ago, we were all out at a bar, and someone brought up that they thought their boss was autistic. And before I could speak up and be like, let's not use autism the way you're weaponizing it, a friend stepped up and said, "Let's not weaponize autism," and like was speaking for me in a good way. Like
yeah,
they'd come to realize how they could also have been ableist in the past, and I don't know. I'm watching myself and my friends grow in a deeper understanding of what it means and being able to accept ourselves more, because a lot of them are also neurodivergent in some capacity.
yeah. I think it's nice to have friends that who are neurodivergent as well, because it's good, like, to meet people or even talk to people that like understand you as well.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
it can make it a lot easier.
definitely. Yeah. But I was similar to you actually. Like you said that you when I was diagnosed, I was I didn't like it, because I was at school and I just thought it was something that made me dumb. Like I weren't the best of maybe maths at school. Probably still not, probably still not the best now. um, but and then like it took me a while to realise, like till maybe my later school years that I it, part of my autism I always cared what other people thought of me. And I guess I don't anymore. Not as much as I did. Like if someone said something to me, I would take it quite seriously. When I was younger.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who are autistic maybe don't take sarcasm. Well, some people do. Like everyone's different, but in my opinion, well, in my circumstance, when I was younger, I did not understand sarcasm. I took offense when I took offense to anything, and I just get upset inside, and I probably wouldn't show it. And now I understand it more than I have, and still some people, I spoke to some people, and I've said that I can understand sarcasm now. I'll take a joke. I can have a laugh about necessary things that are funny,
Yeah.
and you got to be careful with that because if you take a joke and someone else doesn't find it funny, because I don't think you're gonna know, which I don't give. I don't I understand why people are maybe sarcastic. Maybe they just want to have fun. But it's
Right.
a right way and the wrong way. Like if you're just doing it to be mean, that's not nice. Um, but still, some people like the good thing is about autism, everyone's different. So some people maybe like me that can like it all depends when you're diagnosed, or it may not depend when you're diagnosed. You may have had autism a long time and then you've just got diagnosed. Who knows? Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like how are you with sarcasm and stuff?
Yeah. It's so interesting hearing about how we were diagnosed at very different parts of our lives. But when I hear you speak, I relate so much to the things that you're saying, even with the like 20-year age gap in the diagnosis. I when I first was seeking out um, an official diagnosis, I thought, oh no, I get sarcasm. I absolutely get sarcasm. And then like 2, 3 months after the diagnosis, I was like, oh wait, that was not. Oh, that was oh, like I started to realize how much I didn't realize. But I became self-aware enough to realize I struggled with sarcasm more than I thought. When I was in high school, I was a pretty sarcastic person, but it was kind of in a mean way. And that's one reason I stopped being so sarcastic. But it was one of the ways I was masking and compensating because I realized if I could make other people laugh, even if it was at the expense of another group of people, then those people would be more likely to stick around longer, so long as they thought I was funny or entertaining in some way. And um, since then, I've grown a lot as a person. I much uh, more value kindness than I would having people stay at the expense of humor for someone else. But I also really resonated to what you were talking about at school. I got the opposite side of the coin. I'm like really good with maths, but really shit at spelling and reading. And I remember getting pulled out of class to like read extra books to try to catch up because I was so far behind on just like the reading side of things. I felt so stupid all of the time. But then I would also be praised for being really good with numbers. So I could never really tell if I was just really clever or really stupid, but it was really easy to internalize that, oh, I must just be stupid. I
Yeah.
didn't think I was any bit clever until maybe like late high school, early college, and people like, you're making 100 in this class. And this is a hard class, but it just um, when I got my evaluation, they told me about a term, twice exceptional student. Have you heard of that before?
No, I haven't actually. I haven't heard of that.
Twice exceptional student is a student who's exceptionally gifted in one area and needs exceptions or helps and aids in another. and they were trying to describe me like, yeah, your experience in school was like quintessentially autistic growing up, like needing extra help, but also needing extra challenges in the things you're good at in order to stay on track as a student. It was really eye opening to realize, oh wow, it wasn't just me. I'm not stupid.
Yeah, maybe I have a slightly bit of that then, because I am very good at maybe football, for example. I could probably name someone the whole Barclays Premier League English Football League table
Yeah,
memorized, and I can be really good at that. And if everyone asked me a fact about Doctor Who, I could probably tell you, and stuff like that. And like with maths, I know some stuff. I'm not very good with time, so I can't really tell the time. Like I can tell times like if it's 7:45 or stuff like that. I struggle with the other clocks,
sure.
um, and stuff like that, and which I don't know. I always struggle with that kind of stuff, and algebra. I'm not the best at that. But yeah, and like like you mentioned reading. When I read, say we're in a class and they ask me, can
Oh
you
no.
say we're reading a book, or of some sort, and if we're reading, maybe we're on chapter 22, Snake's Eyes, just pretend it's something called Snake's Eyes, and they're reading, and the teacher said, all got to follow, and then when you're following, and then I've lost track as soon as I said and then and then I'm not
Yep.
thinking about what's in the book. What I'm thinking about is what I'm doing later in the day, or what I'm going to do at lunchtime, or something else completely not relevant
Yeah.
to the
It's not
book.
remotely
No,
engaging enough.
no, no, and the boring thing is because they talk so slow. Like it's not nothing against the
Yeah.
person or
Yeah.
whoever is reading the book. If it was me, I would get bored. um,
Yeah.
and that is just I can't concentrate enough to engage. And when they pick on me, if they pick on me to read it, I will honestly say, um, I'll say I don't know where I am. I don't know where I
Yeah.
um, I'll read something maybe on a different page. I'll say, and
Yeah.
then they'll be saying to me, "What are you doing? We're not on that page." And then, but the clever thing, always the clever thing I'll do, because I wouldn't worry at the end of the questions, because normally when the questions come along for the book that you're reading, on there they would say through chapter 22 to chapter maybe page 26 to 20 8, and then I would look at the writing on the question, and then I would picture it where it says it in the text. I would be okay with that side of things, but with the reading things, I'm out.
Right. Yeah. No, I would do similar things and would I was clever enough to try to compensate for all the ways that learning in a traditional sense were difficult, like trying to read ahead or just learning how to teach myself. I thought I didn't like audiobooks for years until I tried listening to them on times two speed and realized, oh no, I just needed it to be faster for me to like stay clicked in and have my mind not wander about what I'm doing next.
Yeah, I'll read stuff I am interested in as well. Like I'll each month it's got into a pattern. I like collecting things. Um, like I'll collect for example, um, I'll collect like I'll get a book, a Doctor Who magazine book that comes out once a month, and I'll read that because I'm interested in it. And there's so many words. Sometimes I lose concentration to that. Um, but beside of books, like I like collecting teddies, as you probably see over there.
Yeah,
And I collect I've loads, and I don't know, I think it's part of my autism where I just get attached to things, and uh, I've loads of them, and that maybe one in particular that I'll like more I'll take to places if I go on holiday and stuff. I'm not going to take the whole set, like
yeah,
loads, but I don't know. I like collecting things. I used to collect a lot of things when I was younger, but doesn't matter what age you are, you can collect anything, I guess.
yeah. I was just talking to an autistic person yesterday about the propensity for autistic people to really like attach on to something that they really like. Like it's not somewhere in the middle of a lukewarm interest. It's either you're not interested at all or you really, really enjoy and feel attached to this thing. When I look around my apartment, this is the first apartment I've lived alone in, and every single bit of decor is something that I cherish or I feel like really reflects me as a person. Like if someone were to come in, I would want them to be able to look at any one item and be like, what does this mean about Jennifer? And I realized that a lot of neurotypical people don't necessarily do that. And I have some collections too that are on like the science and music side of things. But everything I bring into my home, it was like it sparked something in me of like, oh, I really like this. I want to keep it forever. I've never really been lukewarm about anything. It's always been very vested interest in it, and yeah, I relate to that.
Yeah, I I like I get bored of things sometimes as well. So say I'm playing a game, and I am a night owl, so I just like to stay up late and game and which I don't obviously talk about a lot, but I say I play a game and it's a repetitive game, like maybe football. You're playing a football game where it, it gets good, and then I might get interested in it if I do something really good in it, or maybe I get a player that I really like, and it's, there's something different. But most of the time, I'll get bored of playing a game, and then I'll get another one, and then I'll catch on that one if I like it. And then the annoying thing about the world is that games are always new, so there's always a new game that you may like, and then you want to complete one, and then you can't, and then you have to go back to it
Yeah,
later. But probably never happens, and then yeah, I do like that. But along with in like interest wise, I will like to have a few. I won't a few ones that I'll probably talk about more than others. Where it may be books, which are not personally for me, but for some people it may be books. Um, like it's really interesting because I feel like people with autism really connect with each other with their hobbies or if they're similar,
yeah,
I think.
yeah. I agree. I think one of the reasons I didn't pursue a diagnosis sooner, the years after I got my master's, when I moved back to the States, I was rock climbing a lot.
Mm.
And rock climbing is one of those interests that it was really easy to connect with people because there's like three rules. Like if you're climbing something that someone else is also trying to climb, ask first. Don't just jump on something that someone is working on. I know there's like three main things you might ask people, like, "Hey, what are you doing?" or "Hey, can I borrow some chalk?" The social scripts are really easy, and the whole time you're not really talking about what's going on outside of the gym. You're just talking about what's right in front of you, and everyone was really welcoming and encouraging. So socially, it didn't seem like I had any problems. I was overlapping an interest with another group of people, so it was really easy to bond, and I wouldn't have known until some other difficulties came up, and I started needing to accommodate myself.
Yeah, well, that sounds really interesting because I've never done rock climbing, so it's nice that like you can like make friendships while just climbing. I think that's
Yeah,
fun.
it was surprisingly easy. So I haven't watched much Doctor Who, but I do have one episode that I've watched maybe like 7 times. It's my favorite Doctor Who episode. I really like the Van Gogh one. Do you know the one?
Yeah, yeah, I know one. The Vincent Van Gogh one, where yeah, I think that's a really good episode.
Yeah, I really like what that one has to say about mental health. I think I cry almost every time I watch that episode, but
Yeah,
particularly at the end when they, spoiler alert if anyone listening hasn't watched the episode, but when they bring Van Gogh to the museum at the end and he gets to hear the curator talk about how excellent he is, but the outcome of the story still didn't change. I think that's important. Makes me think a lot about mental health services and autism supports in general, like the context of the lives that we live are, this is getting into my master's too. I studied how societal structures, economics, and politics shape and influence people's well-being. So having the right supports in place for people dictates a lot about how they're going to do throughout their life. And
Yeah,
um, yeah, Van Gogh still lived in the same context when they put him back where he was. So it makes a lot of sense that the outcome didn't change, regardless of how much support he had in that moment.
it was a very good it was very good how they did that, and like well, with raising awareness of mental health there, um
Yeah,
because like it's it's weird in a way, like no one noticed him there when he was there.
right,
um because I imagine at least the guy who was like the creator of the place, um maybe he would have, maybe he did a little bit, maybe he thought, who are you? um
right.
at that point. But yeah, there's a lot. There are a lot of impactful things on Doctor Who that impact a lot of people um, who watch it. Like maybe one where there's an episode where a companion of the Doctor asks if the Doctor is all right after recent events. That in this particular episode is one of my favourites. It's a in this episode, it's where a Madame de Pompadour is a Madame de Pompadour episode, where of course is a historical person, and what happens is in this episode that the she Madame de Pompadour has a really good connection with the Doctor, and then they kind of get really close, and then because they're in two different time zones in the episode, it goes through this fireplace that connects them. And what happens is, unfortunately, uh, she the Doctor saves the day from like the monsters in the episode from Madame de Pompadour, and then comes back to get her because it's a different. It's weird because every time they go through they called it a time window, so the fireplace is a time window, so it tie in different time zones. Um, um, and what the Madame de Pompadour unfortunately died, and then there was a funeral. Um, and spoiler warning for anyone who didn't want to hear that. But with that, the Doctor got a letter before a person gave the Doctor a letter, um, so, like before the events that happened, um, because the Doctor wouldn't have been there, and then reads it in the TARDIS. Not that one, unfortunately. Um, but and then was really sad. And then a companion asked the Doctor if are you all right? And then the Doctor says no, 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 sorry, he didn't say that. The Doctor says he's always all right. The Doctor's always all right. And in a really sad tone. And then the companion left to show another companion around the TARDIS. And I thought that was nicely done because it kind of shows that people hide their emotions.
Yeah, you could see it or hear it in the tone that he was grieving something, but no, I'm all right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and and I find a lot of people who are autistic. I have a lot of autistic friends that are autistic and like Doctor Who too. Um,
mhm.
and like, I whenever I have an episode or someone come on here talk about autism and Doctor Who, we always say and that the Doctor does resemblance maybe some traits that as an autistic
Oh,
person may have, but
yeah,
we always say it's important not to have an autistic person as a doctor because it could come across as offensive to some people, um,
mhm.
because everyone's different. So like you can't have a doctor doing some sort, but you can say from your own experiences, which I do sometimes, like that Wednesday program, for example, um,
Right.
um, like Wednesday maybe have the traits, but they're not going to cast her as an autistic character because that may come across offensive,
Yeah.
um, potentially. which is why it's always good to
Right.
talk about these things, any show. But I just feel like recently Wednesday's been really impactful. Whenever I mention, because I did a Doctor Who Autism series last year. And what I did is I got people that had who have autism and don't. Because I thought loads of people like Doctor Who, maybe not all of them know about autism. So I thought that I could raise awareness of that, and it did really well because a lot of people brought things up around it, and it worked because I liked it, and then finding out loads of people liked it as well, and then yeah, that was really fun. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's just when you watch these programs and you just notice little things.
That's a really good way of connecting to people, and relating that experience to people who might not understand what autism can be, like just the extent of it. I've been thinking a lot about the media representation too, and the difference between like a canon character like Abed from the Community versus a head canon character. And I've made a few posts on my page about that too. And the characters I've related to the most that have autistic tendencies are the head canon characters that weren't intended to be autistic, but were written in a way that I'm like, oh, me too. I really relate to that. And the more I've been reflecting on these characters that I relate to who aren't necessarily autistic but have autistic tendencies, I get a little hesitant to speak too loudly on them. Like the one I related to the most was Beth Harmon from the Netflix series, the chess one, Queen's
Oh,
Gambit.
oh yeah.
I really related to her, but she also had this drug problem, and like it can get dicey if we relate like Wednesday, who was violent, to relating characters that were intended to be autistic but have autistic tendencies that autistic people relate to, and labeling them as autistic. But all that to say, I'm wondering if one of the reasons why some of these characters who weren't intended to be written as autistic characters but have autistic tendencies is because the creators or writers behind those characters are autistic. I've noticed with the
Mhm.
cadence of um, like the scripts given to certain characters and stuff, I'm like, oh, that had to have been an autistic writer behind that. Like some people speculate Tim Burton is autistic, which could explain why Wednesday has autistic tendencies, even if the character themselves isn't. Same with the last post I made. Oh, what was it? It was about um, Rick from Rick and Morty, one of the later seasons, I think end of season 3. Rick admits that he believes himself to be autistic, and it was because the creator of the show, one of the co-creators, found out he was autistic, and who's the author, also the author behind Abed, the character from Community, who's autistic. Anyway, I'm wondering how much of those tendencies is because the writers behind those characters are autistic themselves, regardless of whether or not they know it, and that's why
Yeah,
it's peeking through.
I yeah, I completely agree. Like like I could name from New Who of Doctor Who, like how each Doctor could represent themselves being an autistic person. Um, like you got the Ninth Doctor, where the Ninth Doctor doesn't really explain like certain things, or it's very to himself. And then the Tenth Doctor like that situation there and doesn't really like talking either. The 11th Doctor likes flapping hands and like when he speaks and stuff.
Oh, okay,
And
yeah.
um, the um, the 12th Doctor is very similar to the Ninth Doctor. And then the 13th Doctor is so socially awkward. So it's very like
Checks out.
yeah, like we'll just change the subject um and stuff. But
Oh, I
yeah,
laugh because I do that.
yeah, change the subject. Um, even about maybe a serious topic. Um,
Yeah.
um, which I think a lot of people, maybe viewers who didn't understand this, like there was a very serious topic that got like so there was a situation where the 13th Doctor a person a companion recently recovered from cancer, um, and um, and then asked the doctor for advice or what am I going to do now and stuff like that. And then the doctor made of like said something like I'm gonna do something else or I'm gonna have a long pause and think of what to say next or something like that. And a lot of people got offended and annoyed by what the doctor said. But if you think about it from a point of view of maybe an autistic point of view of how that could be thought of, or just at any point of view that it's going to be hard for someone to answer the question that haven't experienced it themselves, really.
Right. I'm
Yeah.
not sure what goes on in your mind when you're unsure how to answer something, but sometimes when I can't figure out what to say or I can't make a choice on like what to eat at a restaurant, it feels like the gears in my mind have stopped, like got stuck on something and aren't turning anymore. But because not because I can't think, but because I'm thinking too much. Like my mind took in that data and is giving me like 12 paths. And I stall because I'm like, I can't compute 12 different things at once. I need to stop for a second in order to better process what I just heard, in order to give what's an actually good answer and not say the wrong thing or make the wrong choice. What is it like in your mind when you're unsure how to respond to someone or can't make a choice in the moment?
Like I think when like if you're getting asked a question in reality, um, people expect you to give you the answer straight away, um, um, and um, and it's hard, like because you can't like for example, when I was at school, primary school, for me, so going back ages ago, and I remember this is because I find it funny now because it was really silly. It was really silly.
Oh no.
So basically, when I was about in what year was it? Year three or four? Year three or four, and the teacher asked, "What is a times table?" Or a math question. They asked me a math question. I think it was a times table, because I had to learn our times tables, and
Oh God, yeah.
and stuff like that. And then the teacher asked me, "What is maybe 9 times 5?" And then of course they do this finger thing, like the skill, and I weren't really good at the finger skill. I was just getting lost every time. And the teacher said, "You've got 3 attempts." I felt like I was on a game show. So, like you've got 3 attempts. Otherwise, you're going out for a detention, Mason. And I was like, I was panicking.
Well, that's stressful.
And then I get it wrong the first time, and then I get it wrong the second time, and then people around me saying, "Am I okay?" Because I was panicking, I was sweating like I was part of a show. Um,
Right.
and then the last attempt, I guess, and I get it right. I get it right, and then I stay in the classroom. I stay in the classroom, and I found it. I was, and then I felt like saying. I wasn't confident this time. I would really want to have a go at this teacher because the way she speaks to me was not very nice, um, and it was not a very good situation because like at least every week you had to go to the teacher and tell your times tables, or whenever you knew a times table off by heart, so you get a sticker or something, or it ticked off,
Yeah.
and this was just it was just like I was on a game show and I got it right, so I passed.
But yeah, that like pressure in the moment does not help give a good answer. I'm glad you're able to guess it, but oh man, I can imagine the suspense building there.
Yeah.
Um, I the last job I had, I was working in this genetics lab, processing different DNA sequences for them. And we had this like whole room of, I'm going to say the wrong words here because I wasn't on the computer side of processors. We had a whole room processing the data, but we had so much data every day coming through that there was a delay. So if we sent information to get processed, it would take a week or three to get that information fully back. Just the sheer quantity of data we were going through. And sometimes I feel like that's kind of what my brain's doing when I have a delay. It's like I'm looking at a tree and I'm getting all 10,000 leaves at once. So it takes a while to like shuffle through all of it. And
Yeah.
it's simultaneously because I'm getting a lot of information and I'm processing it at a different speed and rate and way and storing it differently in my brain. But I've noticed that causes some social difficulties for me. Like people will have a conversation, there'll be a tiff over something, and I won't have anything to say about it for 2 or 3 weeks when my mind has finally gotten around to processing those thoughts and feelings, and then I'm ready to talk about it. But most of the time, that other person is not wanting to talk about it because for them, that was an issue of several weeks ago. But for me, it's only now in the present. I've only just gotten around to that information.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard to understand some information. Like sometimes I felt um in the past where someone tells you some sort of information and they expect you to know because they know. Um,
Yeah,
and I don't know. I don't like. I'm not. We haven't got the same brain as each other, so we're gonna know different stuff.
yeah,
um,
exactly.
like not everyone's gonna know the football Premier League table off by heart, but not everyone's gonna know maybe graphs or data.
Yeah,
um, so I guess whatever people think, I guess at the start we think we're not good. I guess um, when you're autistic, we don't know nothing. It's made us worse, really. Which but I think a lot of people think like that because of maybe situations that are led and maybe of
yeah,
getting jobs if you're autistic is harder because people don't
absolutely.
accept it because they if you have a break, you're not allowed a break in a certain job, and it's it's hard. It's hard to find maybe the right one that you want, or even if they're because it's very hard, isn't it? To for people to understand, and it's hard to explain it over and over again.
Yeah, uh, yes, I deeply, deeply relate to all of that. It can be exhausting to be the primary person in all of those relationships you have, advocating for yourself and trying to bridge that gap in understanding and the continual rejection of people who don't understand how your brain is that much different than theirs and it's an intrinsic part of yourself. It's not a character flaw, it's not a shortcoming, it's a difference. It's a difference that needs accommodating. And when you're continually told the messaging from people who don't understand that and are kind and compassionate about that, it can be really hard to not internalize those messages and beliefs about yourself that I'm just coming short on something. There must be something wrong with me. That's why I keep getting all this rejection. That's why finding this job is so hard. That's why I'm currently in the process of looking for a new job. And it's been difficult because my inbox is just filled with a lot of people saying, hey, we went another direction. And the few times I do get interviews, I've noticed I'm almost always the second pick. Maybe sometimes it's I had less credentials, and that makes sense, or less experience. But oftentimes I had equal experience and equal knowledge as someone else. But they could maybe tell in the interview that there was something, maybe like the vibes were a little bit off from their perspective. And when they pick up on
Yeah,
that difference of mine, even if they aren't labeling it as autism, it does make me a second pick. So that just means I have to apply to even more jobs and go to even more interviews before I find someone willing to just accept. That's before we even get into workplace accommodations, which is a whole other conversation. But getting
yeah.
the job is hard.
Like, how are you with eye contact?
Uh, I like it with like four people that I really enjoy and feel very safe with. But for me, like most of this interview, it's like a punctuation on a sentence. I look back to be like, did my point land? Does that make sense? But the rest of the time, I'm scanning the room. That way, I can free my mind up to think on other things because I see patterns very easily. I draw people. I'm a portrait painter, and So when I look someone in the face, I'm looking at all the lines on their face, and it is way overwhelming, and I just can't look at someone and think. So I try to
Mhm.
save my eye contact to make my points matter. What about you?
Um, well, better than I was when I was younger. I couldn't look at anyone. Like if I speak to a new person or a new person joins the school or something like that, I'll struggle to look at them or just anyone. If I moved, I struggled. I just felt like I was getting watched by everyone because if you're new, people go just look at you. And
Right.
I told the joke, and then I took offense to what the other person said because they just said I was weird, and then I thought, oh
Oh,
no, I thought it weren't great either, to be honest. After I said,
oh, fair enough.
um,
Yeah.
um, I just said some food is nice. I don't know. I can't remember. I just wanted to make. But now me and this person are really good friends, so it must have worked out. um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like with eye contact now, I am more. I still won't maybe look people directly in the eye all the time. Maybe every so often I will. Because I feel like especially if you're doing work, people will think that you are not doing it because maybe you're staring in space. But
Right. Yeah.
you can still do things without looking at it, especially if it's writing.
Exactly.
Um,
Yes.
or like if you're really confident about something, you kind of memorize what you're gonna write, and you don't have to look while you're doing it.
Right.
So yes, it's like I'm better than I was eye contact now, but I still don't
Yeah.
look at people in the eyes. Like you say about like doing like portraits, like maybe about 2 years ago now, I some a family wedding, and I got drawn, and I had to stay so still, and I
Oh
thought
no.
at this time. It wasn't a very good time either. I had a little bit to drink at this time at the wedding, and then I get told to stay still, and it
No,
wasn't.
no.
It, and then I was just laughing. I don't know why. I was just laughing when I was doing it. It must have been a good portrait. Um,
Yeah.
I remember it very well. But um, I I I I thought, yeah, it must be very hard if you're doing that kind of stuff though, because you have to be really concentrated and you got to make sure whoever's doing it, um, maybe not to laugh, and not move, because I kept moving, and um, yeah, it must be hard. Like I've been probably 2 or 3 times I've had that done. I went to I think I had it done in France once, as well. And yeah, it's you have to super still, and if you're not super still, they say, can you stay still, please? So it must be very hard.
One of my friends has a very nice face. There's very good like angles. It's anyway. Um, he has an art background, so when I just like bluntly asked him like, "Hey, can I draw your face?" He wasn't entirely put off by my like really bluntness, but he's like, "Yeah, I'll sit for you." And I was thinking, "Oh God, no, please don't sit for me. Just send me a really good picture," because I just couldn't, have that interaction of having someone
Mm.
sit still in front of me and me focusing long enough and like consistently enough to draw. No, yes, that is hard. I much prefer to work from photographs because of that. It's very relatable.
Yeah, like I
And
might
thank
prefer
you.
that than just sitting there,
Oh
wait
God,
20,
yeah,
30
no,
minutes.
it's oh yeah, no, I can't do it. And then I feel like a social pressure to like entertain the person, and like I have scripts built up and I can keep a conversation going, but it is work. It is not going to come naturally, and I'm going to feel very
Yeah,
tired by the end of it.
yeah. I think the person, well, if they are standing as still as they are, because you can't blink, you can't blink. Like,
Just send
and
me a photo. Like iPhones these days can take quality photos. Just have good lighting, and we'll make it work. But
yeah.
No, there is a skill to drawing people live, and I wish I had more experience with that, but it is something I find difficult.
Yeah, I think that should be a thing for the future or now, and not the future, even now, because like you don't see that like with painting when people doing it, they just like they don't talk to you or like well they do at the beginning. Like you say what you want, and once you say what you
Right?
want, then you stay still, um, and
Yeah,
then
can just sit still.
you might nod a little bit and then nod back, and um, which is pretty funny. But yeah, I think that is much better, and especially if you're autistic, it's that you can't um maybe you lose concentration at what you got to do. If it's 10 minutes, I wouldn't mind, but if it's longer than 10 minutes, I might struggle.
Right? No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but yeah, I guess I guess the wait's worth it, maybe.
Sometimes, I feel like, yeah, no, sometimes it's worth it. Just much prefer to work from photographs. It's a lot easier.
Yeah, it's very good. It's easier as well, isn't it? Like I guess for both.
Yeah,
Um, there's no rush for the person to draw you. And there's no rush for you to sit there.
yeah, and you can choose a portrait that you feel like really reflects that person, or it can be a longer about what you're looking for out of that piece of art too, and it really just opens up a lot more opportunities. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, my phone is giving me a warning. It's saying that I have 13% battery, so this is we started at 43, so
yeah,
I still have a little bit of time,
yeah,
but
yeah. We'll finish in a minute, so it's good time.
okay.
Um, but yeah, I think with the portrait thing, I think it's good when you send pictures because you may go on holiday and you may have gone somewhere nicer than you are just sitting down. So I think it's better when you do stuff like that.
Exactly. It just gets a little dicey when you have like copyright stuff of like if I were to draw famous people, there's only so much I can sell that artwork because I don't have the rights to that image. I'm drawing someone else's art because photography is also art, and then you get this
Yeah,
whole area of ethics in the art and
definitely.
segue into a conversation about AI art and all of that that's been going on too. But
Yeah, yeah. I've heard personally when I do. Cause another hobby of mine is doing cosplay, so I do mostly Doctor Who, but
mm,
and like I get like a person for me does like uh um good edits of me, like maybe in the Doctor or a certain character, which is it's really cool, and it's I just send a picture, it probably takes a week and I get it, so and it's just really nice, it's like to have stuff like that,
yeah.
and I also got one done as me as the 11th Doctor with Wednesday there as well, like in the
Oh, that's
dance
so cool.
in the dancing
Yeah.
kind of format. So we're both dancing, and by the time this is out, it will probably will be shared, which I'll share the like how autism is related to that. But yeah, I thought it was really cool to do,
Yeah.
and
Um,
it looks really cool. But before we go, Jennifer, and your phone dies. Do you have anything like last words, or any advice?
I would say don't feel pressured to feel any particular way about being autistic because I think all of the feelings and thoughts are valid. Like I was nervous to admit that I was not happy to be diagnosed autistic when I first got the news, and I had to process that feeling. I think there's a lot of push in the community to feel pride and acceptance, which is very valid. We need that when a world has told us that we should not feel prideful of having this difference. Um, but if you need time to grieve and process, like that's valid too. Whatever you're feeling is valid. we've also felt it, and self-diagnosis is valid. Everyone's welcome there. Plenty of seats at the table. I want to hear from all of those voices. And however you think or feel about it, if you suspect you might be autistic, it's okay to think and feel those things. Someone else before you has also felt that way.
Definitely. A lot of people, I think, I've recently noticed, I've spoken to a few people that have actually had a self-diagnosis of autism, but it's also good for people to do that as well, because I had actually another person on this series actually is self-diagnosed autistic,
Yeah,
so that which is quite recent as well. So it's good when people have that, and yeah, any diagnosis is special, however it comes. I think. But yeah, Jennifer, thank you for
yeah.
that. That's some really good advice. Um, but yeah, to anyone watching or listening, we hope you've enjoyed our conversation about autism. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it, Jennifer.
I have. It's been a really good conversation.
Yeah,
There's
thank you, and yeah, um, thank you again, Jennifer.
Thank you.